Hello everyone, my name is Jordan, and welcome back to another episode of the Bukkit coding series. Now today, so as you know, I think a few episodes back, first of all, it's been a while, it's I think been about a month since I posted one of these episodes, but about a month or two back, I said I was ending the minigame series, or the minigame tutorial. I don't remember my reasoning for it. I think I got a little too confused. With some, I don't remember what it was, and then I just kind of dropped it, and then I started Hub Project. Now, of course, it's been a month since I posted an episode of this series, and that's because it's really hard to work on a bigger project like that episodically, in my opinion, because I'm not doing any work off camera. And I may possibly bring a series like this back. I just, right now, it was a little too much to handle, especially with school. School is a priority for me, and now that I'm actually, as of today, I'm on break, I can really pump out a lot of these videos, hopefully. And I've also been focusing on Source as well, and we have some plans there. If you are a Source player, we do have plans for you. But yeah, so what I've decided to do is just go back to the standalone videos. But this one is going to be kind of like a transition one. This one's going to be a bigger-ish episode, I guess you could say. But it'll still, not be. And for whatever reason, this up here says episode 26. Let me actually change that. That's odd. Oh, it is supposed to. It is episode 25. I don't know why. Oh, that's because that's the folder. I accidentally named the folder 26. My bad. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is making a small permissions plugin. And this should not take long at all. Honestly, it's very easy, in my opinion, to make a permissions plugin. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So we want to go ahead and make our instance class, not instance class, but instance object here. On enable, set it equal to this, just the basic, get stuff. And actually, I wanted to rename the class to something else. Let me figure this out. We're just gonna call this like permissions. Well, we're gonna call it like TPermissions or something, because I don't think there's a TPermissions plugin out there. But yeah, that's gonna be our permissions plugin name. So that's cool. We have our own permissions plugin. My hands are actually like really freezing right now, but I suppose it is winter, so yeah. Go ahead and make your on disable. We'll probably use this later. For now, it's just going to be used for setting instance equal to null. Next, what we need to do is we need to make a well, actually, we don't need to make anything. We need to well, actually, yeah. What am I doing? We do need to make something. So hold on, and I actually realized I renamed this package wrong. We need to make this episode 25. Do refactor. There we go. Okay. So right here, you want to go ahead and create a new package and then a new class inside of it. A trick, I don't know if I've actually ever said this on video, and I do it so much. What you can do to make a new package with a class inside of it is do a lowercase thing here with a dot and then a class name. And that'll go ahead and create that. But of course, we don't actually want to do that, so we can remove that there. So now we want to make a settings. We're gonna make a user settings class. And what this is gonna be is it's gonna have a singleton so we can access it really quick. Private static user settings. Whoops. User settings. Settings equals new user settings. There we go. And then private user. Whoa. What did I do there? User settings. Whoops. User settings. And make this non-accessible. And then a public static user settings get settings. Get instance will work too, but I have it as get settings here because that's what the instance variable is called. So now what we can do is we can say public boolean debug mode. Or no. Is plugin in debug. I know. Okay, we're gonna name this is debug enabled. and that's going to return tpermissions.getInstance.getConfig dot get boolean, and this path is going to be debug dash mode. Well, yeah, debug dot mode or something. Well, no, debug dash mode. And by default, this will be true. And we actually need to do stuff for config in here. Now, I'm not really good at all with embedded config files. Absolutely no idea why. So we need to make a private void generate, or a public void generate, actually. And then a string file name. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and grab my friend file manager here. And he is going to do this for me. Not do this for me, but give me this method. We're going to say string file name. Well, not file nath. Boom. There we go. File name. And we're going to need to do some things here to make this work. We're going to need a private map of a file configuration followed by a file, and this is going to be called file configuration file map, auto generated for the win, and it's going to be equal to a new hash map. Now what we're going to do is we need to do these instance variables. This is easy. We can just do tpermissions.getInstance.getDataFolder, and that was really easy. We don't have to do anything else for that. Now we need our save method, so a public void save. We're going to need a file and a file configuration. Now all we have to do is try, and we have to catch an IO exception. I think we're just gonna print stack trace and then return. We're also gonna system.out.print an internal error occurred while using TPermissions and saving files. Stack trace. Boom. And then we can actually learn how to spell really quick and do that. Now all we have to do is say file.save. What is it? It's something one of the others can save. No, it's file configuration.save file. So file configuration.save for file. Now we need to make another save method in here if we want to just save a file and we don't have the actual file. Well, that's pretty easy. That's why we have our file configuration map. What we can do is say public void save for file configuration. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use our friend file configuration map, and we're going to say save for file configuration map.get for the file configuration, and then the folio configuration, and then file configuration. So boom, we've just pulled out this file that we did, or that we had in here. We actually can remove this generate name, or not name, method. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly have a get method in here, and we're going to make it suitable to our needs. And there we go. So what we can do in here now is we can say if file name that equals, ignore case, config. So it is a config file. So this file is the config.yml file. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and say temp.set, and we can set things in here. I believe I've probably done a tutorial on this before. But what we're going to do is we're going to set debug-mode to be false. Boom. And instead of this, we're going to replace this with getFile config. And the reason why we're going to run it through here, well, what if this file has never been accessed? We're accessing it through TPermissions. What we were doing is we were accessing it through here and then doing all the stuff with the Bukkit config file, which this is still the Bukkit config file, but it's just made and accessed in a different way because we want to set up our debug mode and all this. Now, of course, there are ways to not do all this stuff, but this is the way I like to do it. And there's probably a better method out there, but whatever works best for you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if user settings dot get settings dot is debug enabled. Boom. So if debug is enabled, then what we're going to do is say system, or no, actually, we want to say get logger dot, nope, not add handler dot log, and we're going to say it's going to be a level of info. We're going to say debug dash mode is enabled in the config.yml. Please, all right, we're gonna say debug messages will appear until you set this to false. And now, whoops, I just hit the thing, I think. Yep. Whoops, no, I don't want terminal. Hold on. Oh my, I am a mess today. And that is by default false. Perfect. We don't need user settings for probably the rest of this tutorial because that's all I wanted. Well, we're gonna need a little bit of it, but I don't think we're gonna need to modify it. Now we're gonna create a new package with a class inside of it, and it's going to be probably listeners dot player listener. And it's going to implement listener and all that jazz. So we're going to have an event handler in here. And we're going to have on join. So player join event E. We're going to also create a managers package. And the name is going to be permissions manager. This is where all the permissions data is going to be stored temporarily. Of course, we're going to have to write all of this to a file because we want to save the permissions in between reloads and restarts. That's kind of the whole purpose of a permissions plugin. So now what we can do is we can say public void, or no, we have to make our singleton stuff here. So that's pretty easy. We can just copy all this crap from in here, change this to boom, 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 boom. We're going to say permission manager. We're going to say get permissions manager. We're going to return permissions manager. There we go. Awesome sauce. So now what we can say or do is we can make a, I believe it's a map. Let me double check here. Yep, it's a map. So it's a map. We can say private map KV. So our K or our key is going to be a UUID, and our value inside is going to be something called a permissions, or no, it's a permission attachment. And this is going to be the permissions data map. And this is going to be a new hash map. What we can do now is we can go ahead and say public permission attachment get permission data for UID. So we're going to pull it for a player's UID. So we're going to say if permissions data map dot contains key UID, then return permissions data map dot get for UID. Otherwise, if there is no data to be found in that map so far for our thing here, what we're going to do is we're going to, let me double check here. Okay. Then we're going to create a permission attachment and plug it in there. So we're going to say permission attachment equals, okay, we actually need a player object here. Player, boom, UID equals player.get oh my gosh. I just messed up my other window here. Get unique ID. And now what we can do is we can say equals player dot add attachment for TPermissions dot get instance. And boom, that's not, I think that's all we have to do for now in that portion. Yeah, there we go. And then all we have to do is plug this in. So we're going to say permissions data map.put and then UUID and then the permission attachment. We're going to return, and then after we've inserted it there, we're going to return permissions data map.get UID just to confirm that it is inside there, which it should be because we just checked. If it's not in there, then we're going to put it in there. So yeah, now what we can do is we can actually modify what permissions that person has, and this is where grouping and things come into play. This permissions plugin will, until I update it, which I may or may not do, will only be able to support per user permissions. That's just because with the knowledge you have from this, you can go and modify it yourself. Of course, I may end up revisiting this in a future episode, but that's how it's going to be for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to say public void insert permission, and then it's going to take in a player, and a string permission. We're also going to have a public void clear for player. We're going to have a public void reload for player. And I think that's about all we need for now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, so we're going to get permissions data for that player because, you know, we guarantee through this method, we absolutely guarantee that they have data in that map. And then we can say set permission, and then true. There you go. And you have just inserted a permission. And now what we're going to say is if user settings, my bad, .get settings is debug enabled. Then we're going to say tpermissions.getInstance.getLogger.log level.info added permission plus permission to player.getName for this runtime. And the reason I say for this runtime is because this is never modifying their permissions in a file yet. We will do that in just a second, but that's not doing any of that now. So, and actually, to make this simple, we can make a debug method that will we don't have to do this check everywhere. Yeah, here, let's do that. We're gonna say public void debug level string message if user settings.get settings is debug enabled, then we're just going to get logger.log at level and then message. So instead of this right here, all we have to do is say debug. There you go. So this check is now invalidated, which is a good thing right now. There you go. Perfect. And now we can just go ahead and change this to be tpermissions.getInstance dot debug. Sweet. And boom. Okay, so now that we've done this here, we want to make the clear method. We're just going to say permissions data map dot remove player dot get unique ID. And now we've just successfully cleared it. We can go ahead and add a debug message and say cleared the data or cleared permissions for this guy during runtime. So cleared permissions for that user for this runtime. There we go. Okay. It looks a little repetitive now, but I don't think it will once we actually have a player name in there. Now for reload. This is going to be the part where we read off of our file. So we're going to say list string permissions equals new array list. we're going to say if user settings dot get settings. I keep saying get instance because I'm used to it. Dot get file player dot get unique ID. Well, actually, we don't want to do it like that. We want to say get file permissions dot get string list. We're going to say data dot plus player dot get unique ID dot permissions does not equal null. Then we're going to say permissions equals all this crap. Boom. Perfect. And then otherwise it's just going to be that normal list we had before. Well, actually, otherwise, if there is nothing, then we can return. So because it's not the last statement though, so we're okay. So now what we can do is we can say for in x equals 0. Doesn't matter what we name that variable. X is less than permissions dot size x plus plus. And now what we can say is so for every single one of those permissions, and we can actually just set this equal to absolutely nothing for now. For every single permission that is in this newly defined list, what's going to happen is we're going to say insert permission player, and then permissions dot get x. So that's going to have a whole crap ton of debug, but that is why there's a thing to disable and enable it. So yeah, and we've just basically inserted all the permissions we need to. And I think that's about it. We could replace this with a for each. Oh. Wow, that was actually really easy. I'm wondering if this is Java 8. Because if it is, I don't want to put it in there. Let's just keep it as what it was before with the int cycle, because that's a little more traditional. So now what we're going to do in the player join thing that we made a little bit before, we're going to have our player object here, and we're going to say permissions. Give it a second, I got to find it. Permissions manager dot get permissions manager dot reload for player. And dot reload will be perfect for instantiating stuff for that player. And then otherwise right here we actually want to add something in. We want to say otherwise then we're going to add some permissions in for them by default. File configuration equals user settings dot get instance dot get file permissions, and then file configuration dot set boom boom. We'll say data dot boom player dot get unique ID dot toString. I need to change this to toString. I think Java automatically does that, but I want to be safe. So we're going to set data dot this plus dot permissions. Actually, we want to set name first. We're going to set the name to be their name. Oh my gosh, I'm a wreck today. Dot get name. And we're also going to set permissions is equal to, we're just going to set it equal to well, actually, we don't really want to set it to anything yet. Well, we could. Equals new array list. It'll just be, oh my gosh, new array list. Just a blank list, and that's all we really need to do there. Now you can just say user settings dot get settings dot save for file configuration. And that's where our settings stuff came into play. And then really quick, what we can do is we can make a commands thing in here. Commands dot TPermission command implements command executor. And okay, so we're gonna be a little bit lazy for now in here. I'm not gonna take like another 15-20 minutes just to do all the command stuff, because command stuff takes a very long time. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna say if they're a player, then we're just gonna get their permissions and add like some random one on there. So I'm just gonna make it generate a string of characters randomly. Sponsored by my password generator, actually. Let me go ahead and copy this guy here, and then I'll get us a random letter. Boom. There we go. So this will get us a random letter. And we're just gonna make a string of like random permissions just to test this out. And of course we will test it with another plugin like Essentials maybe. Probably something to do with like multiverse or Essentials. One of those bigger ones that I have like 1,400 copies of on my computer right now. So what we're gonna do now is actually do that. We're gonna say string to add equals null. So every single time this TPermission command is getting run, we're just gonna add a random permission to this person's thing, because you know it's fun. For int x equals 0, x to 69 maybe. No, I'm just kidding. We're gonna go like 10, so it's gonna be 10 things long, and then we're just gonna say to add equals. We actually need to set this to not be null, or else that's gonna throw a whole ton of null pointer exceptions. To add equals to add plus get new letter. Haha. That's going to generate our thing. We're going to say file. Actually, here we're going to actually need to do this. Boop. Okay, instead of returning right here, permissions. It will be used. Okay. Yeah. Right here. Oh, and then we actually need to set permissions equal to something. Permissions equals new array list. Okay, so now what we can say is we can say permissions dot add to add, and then we need to make file configuration appear farther up here. Well, oh my, are you kidding me? This bug is back? No, absolutely not. This bug, so it's like this really weird bug, and I'm sure I've talked about it like many times. But it's so annoying. But it'll like copy the file path I'm working in, and it's like I don't want the file path I'm working in. So okay, now we can just say TPermissions dot, get instance debug level dot, oh my gosh, level dot info, and then add a new permission to plus player dot player dot get name. Permission is plus to add or something like that. Yeah, that's what it is. Add a new permission to player name. Permission is that. Perfect. And then what we need to do is we actually need to save this. File configuration. Oh, we have to set this to. Instead of new array list, it's going to be permissions. Haha. And then just instead of saving there, we're gonna save here. And boom. There we go. Perfect. And then on logout, we need to clear them just so we don't continuously have data and cause leaks and stuff like that of memory. On quit, player quit event e, and we can say permissions manager.get permissions manager.clear for e.get player. Simple enough, I assume. Boom. So get command TPermissions set execute a new TPermissions command, and then get server, yep, and then get plugin manager, register events new player listener this. And oh, one more time, we need to add a file, plugin.yml, name TPermissions, version 1.0, author your name here, commands space TPermissions description base command. Boom. And then go ahead and build this guy. I will go ahead and hide my friend over there. And now we have our jar file here. We can go ahead and copy him. I'll go ahead and start a server up. Servers, BC test server, plugins. We'll go ahead and do this. Ep25. Start. Okay, I am ready to find all of the errors that we have just created. Probably a lot. Okay. Main is not defined, my bad. Knew there was something I was missing. Main equals us.Trollz ltd.ep25.TPermissions. Of course, if we were actually going to publish this anywhere, we'd change that package name to a more professionalized name. But we're not. At least I don't think I am. I might one day. So now we can just reload the server. Boom. TPermissions enabled. I need to move this over here so I don't show my insanely long list of alts. Boom, play. Okay, we're good. And I launched the wrong profile, but that is fine. Okay, so it doesn't look like we got any errors. On startup, we may get errors during this file runtime, but, you know, I don't think so. Nothing. Okay, and then it generated our file here. We have config, and debug mode is actually false. We should set this to true just so we can see all of our friendly messages. Okay, so first of all, I don't see, I don't actually see our, hold on. I don't see any permissions being added for me, so let me actually just type in TPermissions. Add a new permission. Okay, so it's like this random permission here. If we check permissions.yml, should we yeah, we do have it. So there we go. For whatever reason, that didn't show up. I want to figure out why this didn't work here. Permissions manager, insert, clear, reload. Oh, I want to actually put this in the join. So I want to make a refresh method. So public void refresh player. And this refresh method, all it will do is be kind of purposeless. Not really purposeless, but it'll just set their name in the file. Because, you know, that is pretty important sometimes. Because if you want to like command F a file and you only have a UUID, then it can be a little bit annoying. There we go. We may build. And what we can do now is we can actually test this in just a second. And let's get like essentials on the server. Essentials. And let me de-op myself. Cool. There's just a random copy of essentials here, and then I'm gonna go into, okay, so what we're gonna try and do is do like a well, we'll figure it out. We don't know yet. We'll make some permission thing. You have no new map. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is do like well, first of all, TPermissions. So it looks like it's actually working like first try, which is pretty cool. Other than the name thing, but that's fine. That's not too big of a deal right now. We can fix that at a later date. So what's an essentials permission node? Essentials.fly. So fly. Don't have access to that command. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead. Oh, my name is there. It just didn't show up at first. Let's go ahead and add another permission here. Of course, you can make a command to do this, but, you know, we don't have that. Essentials.commands.fly, I believe, is the perm. /reload /fly. Oh, don't even have permission to reload my own server. That's kind of the purpose, though. Oh. You don't have access to command. What's the, okay, hold on. Help, fly. It doesn't tell me what the perm is. So hold on, let me time to Google this. Essentials, I think I did it wrong. Essentials permissions. let's go ahead and see what the heck we did wrong. Search fly. It's just essentials.fly. So boop, essentials.fly. Boom, we can reload the server. And boom, fly. Oh, that's because we reloaded and we don't re-inject permissions on reload. So that is something that may be serious because some servers like to have reloads for whatever reason. So I'm going to say for players bucket.get online players. First of all, we actually need to use this in on disable too to remove all their permissions so we don't get an excess amount of data for whatever reason. Permissions manager get permissions manager. Oh my gosh. I believe it's refresh. No, it's not. It is reload for player. And under on disable, what we're going to do is we're going to clear for players. And now with this final update, the permission will appear for us on disable. Not on disable, but on the next reload cycle. Boom. And boop. There we go. We now have the /fly command. We don't have game mode. You see, we're not op, so we can't use any of these reload commands. But we do have the /fly command. And that's right here. So if there was ever a plugin that had the permission on pdest, all this other stuff, we would have that. So yeah, this is how you do basic permissions plugin stuffs. And I probably will revisit this because this was a fun topic to do. I'll probably end up doing some cutting though, and I'll put part of the code in the description maybe, just because it is 40 minutes long. But maybe I will include the entire thing. But as you can see on enable, let me figure out where our debug message was. I have no idea. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So I added all these during runtime. There we go. I was just blind. But yeah, so that's all of our debug stuff, so we know it is working. So yeah, that was it. Thank you for watching. Take care.